By 2008, the Nintendo Wii was cemented as a success. It had steadily outsold its competitors and had endured a long shortage of availability due to rapid sales. The revolutionary video game console provided unique motion controls, hit titles like Twilight Princess and Sports, and an affordable price, all of which encourage gamers and non-gamers alike to clamor for the machine in order to play bowling right in their living room. The console's monumental popularity persuaded game developers to produce for the system in vast quantities, and not always for the better. The Wii received a lot of flack due to the wave of unwanted cheap games many call shovelware. Indeed, for every Super Mario Galaxy, there were 10 or more imagined party babies. Ugh. Because of this reputation, gamers more than a decade later may be hard-pressed to find some of the hidden gems on the Wii catalog, relying on the tried-and-true Nintendo classics rather than sifting through the junk to find that diamond in the rough. This is Trash or Treasure, the video series where I explore lesser-known titles, or those that have fallen from grace, to determine if they are indeed worth adding to your gaming collection, or if they're rubbish, only worth dumping into the trash can. The Blob is an action platformer, released for the Nintendo Wii in 2008. Published by THQ and developed by Blue Tongue Entertainment, the game tasks players with regaining control of the beautiful Chroma City from the clutches of the Inked Corporation, a nefarious Nazi-like enemy cell that has invaded the colorful resort in their attempt to subvert the world to their monochrome ways. The citizens and districts of the city thus aren't just sapped of their color, their spirit as well. Enter the Color Underground, a group of resistance fighters that aim to bring color and spirit back to the resort by any means necessary. Among their ranks is Blob, the titular protagonist, who has a remarkable ability to absorb color and literally paint the town red, or blue, or even purple. Players combine colors that they absorb in order to expand beyond the common primary colors, forcing the player to do some quick thinking when in need of that hard-to-obtain brown. These shades are used to coat the entirety of the dull Chroma City, from turning buildings into vibrant hues to making trees spring to life once more. It's a simple concept, but can be loads of fun for completionists like me that can't leave a single building untouched. Bringing color into a dull world makes for alluring gameplay. It inspires exploration, relies on an obsessive desire, and brings about wondrous change. It's not so much different than collectathons like Banjo-Kazooie, and I have to say transforming a city from drab to fab makes for quite the reward when done right. The structure of each of the game's 10 levels follows a rather straightforward method. Your goal is to reach a high score, which will unlock a gate to the next section of the stage. To gain points, players must cover areas with paint, defeat enemies, pick up collectibles, and complete missions. Missions are given by one of the game's 4 companions of the Resistance, each of which has their own different types of challenges to give you. First, there's the Professor, the leader of the group, and who targets the city's most crucial landmarks for you to cover with paint and restore them to their former splendor. Fifth, no, not that one, is the group's muscle and tasks Blob with defeating enemies and combat challenges. Zip is a scout and tasks the player with time trials, as well as guiding them to new sections of a level. Last, there's Artie, the color expert of the Resistance, and her missions often have the player color objects a specific color. I found hers to be the most challenging, as these often required planning, patience, and a mastery of the game's controls. Still, I always enjoyed the Professor's missions, if only witnessing a building's transformation always offered something new and exciting. It felt like I was actually making a difference in this little digital town. While the game's stages are fun to roam around in, they are far too linear for the game's own good. Players are encouraged to explore, seek out, and transform the city of Chroma, But that illusion is lost when there's only one way to advance, and divisions in a stage are arranged in a straight line. I would have much preferred a less linear layout. Levels also aren't varied enough for my taste. Stages don't just offer the same objectives over and over again, but really begin to look a lot alike once you begin digging into them. The core of any good platformer is in the controls, and here, the Blob really falls short. The majority of the game has you jumping from place to place, painting the world as you go, and occasionally crushing an enemy underneath your gelatinal figure. Jumping only requires you to swing the Wiimote in any direction, while the Z button can highlight targets that you can smash with another swing. The problem with this lies within the inconsistent nature of the Wii controller. Many times I missed an easy jump or was hit by an enemy simply because the Wii failed to recognize the movement of my arm. This is a recurring theme of Wii games that fell just short of the mark, I think. The Wii offered controls that could have been revolutionary, and in many ways it was, but too many developers failed to utilize the Wii's technology in strong ways, and instead forced its implementation into areas that it wasn't needed. There is no reason why a platformer should substitute this for such a basic command. By the end of an hour play session, my arm was actually sore because of the constant swinging I had to do. It reminds me of Twilight Princess all over again, but at least swinging the remote in that case somewhat made sense, as it mimicked the swing of a sword. Here, it's shoehorned in to justify the Wii exclusivity. Another shortcoming of the Blob is how slow Blob moves in the environment. The game requires a lot of wandering around, jumping from place to place, occasionally sliding off of walls and jumping higher to reach the tops of buildings, and it doesn't help that Blob trudges along like a sticky wad of goo rather than a bounding ball. One can imagine enjoying the platforming if Blob had the finesse of Super Mario or the speed of Sonic, but alas he has neither. Some speed could go a long way to improving enjoyment. The game is not without its merits, however. For a Wii title, the game's graphics are quite charming. I especially like the character animations, with cutscenes unfolding like old Saturday morning cartoons. The inked members may come across as cheap knockoffs of Ubisoft's Rabbids, but while I particularly don't like the Rabbids, the inked baddies come across in a much more tolerable way. The Resistance fighters too appear full of charm and energy. Artie always looks so full of joy when she's dishing out a mission, while Biff, no, not that one, looks ready for a fight. Blob himself is pleasantly animated, making him a bit more fun to play despite the control issues. The color in the game is expectantly bright and colorful, and while presenting it on an HD system would have certainly made the change from colorless to vivid much more stunning, the Wii is able to pull off this feat well enough. One of the best things about the Blob is its stellar soundtrack. Before each level you can choose Blob's mood, which is the music that plays during the stage, and you can unlock more as you go along. There aren't many games that include musical tracks as rewards, but when it's this good, I'm thankful. John Guscott has done a phenomenal job of composing a dynamic soundtrack that not only sounds solid, but changes based on how you play. Each of the game's 10 tracks offers a variant of electronica, funk, or jazz. The harmony remains steady throughout gameplay, with melodic drifts jabbing out as the player splashes color across the environment. These melodies change in the instrument being used depending on what color Blob is. Saxophones squill out when you're red, while jazzy violins strum along to the beat when you're purple, for example. The Blob also has a decent amount of enemies to tackle, from swarming ink soldiers to artillery guns and mobile tanks. Each baddie requires a different method to destroy them. Soldiers, for example, just need a bonk on the head, while tanks need a full stock of color to waste them to dust. Combat is handled in such a way that it complements the puzzle nature of the title, rather than the action, which is a huge plus due to the unreliable controls. I did end up wishing that I saw more variety in the enemies outside of missions, though. It seemed that I only ran into big foes, like tanks, when Biff, no, not that one, ordered me to ambush them. The only other real obstacle that stands in Blob's way are the toxic trails of ink that is sometimes laying around. Touching this or having it thrown on you by an enemy will wash away all of your color and drain your life energy. This forces the player to make a quick dash towards a source of water to wash off, or else being taken back to a checkpoint. These aren't too annoying, except that if you have just used your paint, you may be very low on energy when you're doused in ink, resulting in a loss of life. I suppose it makes for a risk-reward type of battle system, but I think it could have been handled a little bit better, with the inclusion of an actual life meter rather than having it all tied to your overall paint levels. There are also bonus challenges that are unlocked upon completing each level with a certain high score. These are fun little mini-games that are in essence more complicated forms of the missions your allies give you during stages. It may not add a ton to the gameplay, but for anyone wishing for a harder challenge after beating a stage, well, the game offers just that. It should also be noted that the Blob, while published by a larger studio in THQ, has much more humble beginnings. The game began life as a free-to-play downloadable title for Microsoft Windows and designed by only 8 students at Utrecht University in the Netherlands. The game was first unveiled at an art exhibit for the city of Utrecht's refurbished railroad station, and while it entertained visitors with a short activity, it also educated guests with the layout of the city. This game became so popular, in fact, that the city of Utrecht made Blob the town mascot for some time. Elements of the retail game were fully visible in this small release, though in this scenario Blob is an alien that accidentally crash lands on what I suppose is Earth, and mischievously begins causing destruction by, well, you guessed it, giving the mundane world a spice of color. Blob behaves a bit more like the protagonist in Katamari Damacy, growing larger with the more paint that he absorbs, and I like this addition, as it makes me feel more powerful. I also enjoy how animated this design of Blob is, although his goofy appearance doesn't convince me that he'd be the hero of a fighting resistance. The Inked Corporation are also more FBI agents this time around, trying to subdue Blob, and must be avoided at all costs. The controls in this game are far worse than the retail version, due to everything being mapped to the mouse with no input from the keyboard being used at all. But I can see how such a game convinced THQ to purchase the license and launch it with a revamped premise. The Blob has some problems. The controls can be frustrating, the levels are linear, but overall, the entire package is certainly worth a look, especially if you enjoy puzzle platformers with awesome music. In fact, the game and its sequel both released on PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Nintendo Switch, and Microsoft Windows starting in 2017, boasting HD visuals and simpler controls. While I haven't played these versions, those hesitant on the Wii title should snag these for the controls alone. Otherwise, the Wii game is certainly worthy of your shelf space, so go ahead and toss that Imagine Babies game into the garbage. Look forward to a review of its sequel to Blob 2 in the very near future. Anyway, here's Wonderwall.